We got some pretty wild stuff happening here when we have landlords now throwing in the white tower. They're surrendering. We're seeing renters in many parts of the country getting a lot more insane deals, especially the tech-heavy centered Bay Area, or aka Silicon Valley. You got places like Fremont, San Jose, and San Francisco, Oakland, all offering some of the most insane concessions for renters. And zoom a little further out, Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, and even on the East Coast, you got New York City and places like Philadelphia, all offering insane concessions for a lot of buyers and renters. And let me just start it off that Zillow is saying this. It's not me, it's not someone else. It's one of the biggest real estate companies in the world. Now, living in Bay Area could be insanely expensive, but Zillow is releasing a new report this month showing data, and it pretty much says that landlords are offering amazing incentives to renters. Now, here's the really weird thing about the situation. Many landlords are refusing to drop the price of their rent because if they do so, the property values will go down as well. Therefore, a lot of landlords are offering pretty high rents, but they're offering 2 to 3 months of free rent, which if you really do the math, it does equivalent to much lower rent on a monthly basis. In San Jose, for example, 51% of the apartments, so the majority for once, are offering amazing incentives to potential renters. That number is about 40% in San Francisco, which is way higher than before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, it was only a small fraction of units offering very, very lackluster stuff, like maybe a couple gift cards or cheaper parking. Now people are literally offering you free rent. Imagine that. Now head over towards Oakland. It's not even that great either. In fact, landlords are suffering even more under the intensive population decline and massive construction that's happening, which both doesn't really end well for rental prices. This is why in the past few months, Oakland dropped 7.2% in rent, and many parts of Oakland are offering 2 months of free rent, even 3 months of free rent plus free parking, just so you can rent with them. And that is causing a lot of people to be very happy. People still work in the Bay Area. People still commute to San Francisco. So having a couple months free rent really does mean a lot for a lot of these guys. And look at this. The commercial real estate sector just isn't really that great. And you also got to focus a lot, not just on these landlords, but also the big landlords as well. These big skyscrapers, like one of the biggest landlords in LA just defaulted on a $755 million skyscraper loan. I mean, it's 2 skyscrapers. There it is, right there. And it's almost $1 billion just simply going default. This story was back in February, which was almost a year ago. And people thought that this is probably the bottom for the real estate market in the office department. But no, it's just beginning. In fact, there's so many offices in San Francisco, Seattle, New York City, for example, that are just completely empty. Many of these rents are just extremely low and many companies are no longer renting. Did you know that before the pandemic, office vacancies was pretty high at 16%. Now it's heading towards 25% on the national average. But if you look at these specific cities, the big cities in the US, like San Francisco, Seattle, Austin, Las Vegas even, Chicago, the vacancies are doubling and even tripling compared to before. Like San Francisco, for example, before the pandemic, vacancies were 3 to 4%. Now it's at almost 40%. Like at Seattle, it was under 10. Now it's heading towards 20%. This is happening at a massive scale. And combine this with the residential landlords, it's not really looking so great. And then on top of that, Google is even kind of scared of the frozen real estate market. Lendlease, an Australian construction company, used to partner up with Google to make a potential massive Bay Area project. $15 billion in the next decade of investment, several new campuses, 15,000 new housing units in the region, in which they recently just completely scrapped the plans and canceled. And even if Google needs more space, they could just buy one of the properties that recently foreclosed. They don't have to make a campus. And that's exactly what they're thinking. Because before the pandemic, there was so much building. Everyone was very happy. Office buildings were still extremely lucrative because online work was something that was a little bit unheard of. Online meetings was like, nope, that's not a thing. But now it just seems like everyone likes this online stuff. Even Google themselves is hiring a bunch of online gig workers and freelance workers and even moving some of their 6-figure jobs online as well. So it really makes you wonder, do they really need to make this massive campus? Most likely not, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're not making this campus. They're done with this. Now, one of the most crazy things about this is Zillow is also sharing their 2024 prediction. And these predictions are generally pretty good. If you look at this, Zillow is saying that housing prices and mortgage rates are holding their same high prices for a while. It's also unlikely that more homeowners will sell their homes because many homeowners, when they sell their homes, they want to buy another house. Or some people sell their homes and they buy 2 houses as investment. But then no one's going to do that when interest rates are 7 to 8%. So Zillow is saying that if there's a potential rate cut next year, which will most likely cause prices to lower, because that means a lot of sellers who are itching to sell for months and years can finally sell because of lower rates. And combine that with the record new construction and the amount of people wanting to sell their secondhand homes, prices are about to collapse. And that's exactly what Zillow is predicting. So if you guys want to buy a home and you're still waiting on the market, wait till interest rates go down, right? That's when a lot of new construction has to sell for cheap. And that's when a lot of used homes have to sell for cheap. Because everyone right now, let me tell you, they're itching to sell. They want to sell super bad, but they can't because rates are so incredibly high. So just wait a little bit, be patient, and you'll definitely get a lot of money off of this. And now with offices, this is one of the biggest catastrophes I've ever seen. I don't think the media is talking about this enough, but offices are sitting empty. This is the reality of the situation right now. Landlords are handing back the keys. If you check out this, some of the biggest names in the commercial real estate market, like Brookfield and Blackstone, have defaulted on mortgages. The defaulted mortgages are mostly on non-residential buildings like retail storefronts and office buildings. In fact, a lot of these big real estate companies are investing in industrial real estate, and that's actually pretty profitable. But it's also pretty questionable because manufacturing numbers are also down recently. We're also seeing a lot of these banks and lenders putting a lot of their eggs and money into commercial real estate, and big city offices, it's cracking up, right? It's no longer the profitable buildings that we've seen before. If you go to any downtown America, you probably see rows and rows and rows of office buildings, which are mostly completely empty. And one of the biggest projects currently ongoing is going to be the Trans-America Pyramid building and its billion-dollar bet on downtown San Francisco, which a lot of people are saying that it's probably not going to end well. It looks pretty incredible, right? But there's really not that many big companies left in San Francisco who's willing to rent this. And I guarantee the rents are not going to be cheap. And if they're not going to be cheap, not a lot of people want them. Here's the thing about a lot of these investments. They're generally not really that great. Now, this is a fantastic building. It's basically the Empire State Building of the West. If you look at this, it's a fantastic looking building. Even got little gardens, trees, and stuff like that. It's a very unique tower that you can't find anywhere else in San Francisco. It's a $1 billion bet. That's a lot of money. $1 billion. And the scary thing is, we've seen a lot of $1 billion bets in the office department in the past couple of years, and none of them really turned out that well. I gotta make a whole entire video about this. It's a very interesting sector of the real estate market. It's one of the biggest bets of real estate of the year, and they haven't fully opened up. They're still renovating it, but let's see what happens. This is one of the wildest things I've ever seen. But overall, just remember, a lot of landlords are suffering. They're taking massive beatings, and a lot of concessions, incentives, and rent reductions are on the horizon.